Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Mordian Glory video. So, yesterday we had our day of mourning, we had our day of salt. Yesterday was a day of just venting a bit of frustration, a bit of anger, which is healthy and it's something that we should do. I know there's a lot of comments on that video saying, come on, stop bitching, stop moaning, get on with being a proper guard player. And I understand that, and don't worry, those comments don't annoy me in the slightest. That's great. It's good to see there's a lot of guard players out there which are already stiffening their upper lip, placing those feet and holding the line for the Emperor still. Absolutely fantastic. And obviously there's loads of other comments there, venting frustration, and letting a bit of the salt out, and they're also great because obviously we should be able to as a community let out a bit of anger when something like this happens. So both sets of comments are good. Saw lots and lots of discussions, a couple of arguments on the comments. That's all good as well. That's just people interacting, building a community, which is what we want to do here. We want to build community, share tactics, share ideas. So that's all fine as long as things remain generally civil. Then I've got no problem with that going on. Obviously, if it gets uncivil, then might have to do something about it. But as far as I've seen so far, there's no problems, and if anything does pop up, I'll have a look into it. But yeah, so we've had our day of salt, our day of mourning. Now it is time to look at solutions, because whilst yesterday it might have felt like the sky was falling and what's the point in living anymore, I have gone through I've gone and found every option I can find that help gets around this little problem of ours. So essentially what it comes down to is, what I'm going to be looking at today is how do we help resist battle shock now that commissars are essentially dead. So don't forget, commissars are essentially dead. Basic ones are anyway. Their leadership 8 is okay as a morale boost, but they're a bit of a liability, and there are ways to get better than a leadership 8 boost. Considering guards on leadership 7, paying 31 points to get leadership 8, and then a deadly reroll doesn't seem like a great idea. So regular commissars are dead completely. Lord commissars do have a place, because they're still relatively cheap at about 55 points, but they give you a sweet leadership 9, which is good. Very good. And there's ways that we can jump on top of that as well. So, prefixing this with saying regular commissars are dead, Lord commissars are okay, but we'll go into that in more detail. But there are many ways that many options we have to avoid battle shock, because that's what it's all about. We want to avoid battle shock. We don't want our men running away. So, one second. I've just remembered one more. There we go. Right, so there's two things essentially. One, ways of mitigating the actual battle shock test itself. And the other way of getting around this is by improving our base leadership, so that we don't have to take the battle shock test. So, the first and most obvious one, which I'm sure many of you already are aware of, is the Regimental Standard. This is an upgrade for the Command Squad, which is 5 points, and it simply gives all units within 6 inches of the Regimental Standard +1 leadership. Now, I've checked that in my book, and I will double check it again to make sure I'm not bullshitting. Because I don't want to give out bad advice, but I have triple checked this. Command Squad, Regimental Standard, all friendly regiment units add 1 to the leadership whilst they are within 6 inches of any regiment veteran with a Regimental Standard. Cool. That's very good because it adds 1 to their leadership. Doesn't say leadership characteristic, just adds 1 to their leadership. Okay? Which is important. Okay? Although it could be argued that it adds one to their leadership. Either or. I would say that that's just a flat +1 to your leadership value. But it's within any regimental zone, so you can't stack 3 or 4 regimental standards on and give yourself a, a +3, +4 leadership bonus. No, if you're within range of 1 or more regimental standards, you gain +1 leadership. Very simple. If you just take a command squad and just give them a regimental standard, that will set you back 29 points, which is okay. That's not bad. Advantage of this, it's relatively cheap. The rest of the command squad can be outfitted with special weapons. I would almost be tempted to not to do that, because the command squad's very much, with the regimental standard, is very likely to be targeted anyway to be killed off. So giving them special weapons is probably a waste of points. And also, you don't want to draw attention to them. Your enemy might see a little 4-man squad of lasguns running around and be not that bothered about them. I would recommend either giving them no special heavy weapons, or sniper rifles, so that they can sit back and snipe and maybe provide like a backfield fire base, a +1 leadership. If you've got a couple of squads at the back with plasma las cannons or sniper las cannons, it might help. So yeah, but otherwise, that's the advantage of the command squad plus regimental standard. It's cheap, and it gives a nice flat bonus. Disadvantage is it's relatively easy to remove. Okay, now, second way around this whole battle shock malarkey is using regimental tactics. Okay, so for example, Mordians inadvertently have received quite a good buff with this FAQ, because they now get +1. Obviously, they always had +1 leadership for being ranked up. So if you have regimental standard plus you're a Mordian and you're all ranked up, that gives you +2 leadership, which means you'll be leadership 9, which is, as you can already see, going some way to boosting, to mitigating battle shock. So that's good. Obviously, disadvantage of that is you've got to remain ranked up, which can limit the amount of space in the board you can take up, will sometimes limit your conga line abilities, but generally speaking is okay. It's free, but I guess at the same time, the disadvantage is you have to pick Mordians as your trait, which you may not want to do. You may not like the fluff of the Mordians, so there you go. It may force you down a path you don't want to take, but it will help you for no points cost. It will help you mitigate battle shock. On the topic of Mordians, the Mordian Warlord trait has become much better now. Every time a guy runs away on a 4+, if you're within 6 inches of your Warlord, he just doesn't run away. Iron Discipline. So that's good. It's only a 4+, but again, yes, it is free. It's just a Warlord trait, but again, it is forcing you to take a Warlord trait you may not necessarily want to take. Okay? It's only a 4+ as well, so it's not like it's guaranteed. If it was a 3+, I think it'd be a bit better. But with it only being a 4+, it's not great. But once again, it's gonna force you to take a trait you may not want to take, a Warlord trait, a Regiment trait. Next Regiment trait, Catachans. This one's a little bit easier. Anyone who's in 6 inches of an officer gets +1 leadership as Catachans, which is great, because obviously you're generally going to have your officers near the front lines issuing orders. So there should be very little excuse not for you to have +1 leadership as Catachans. And considering Catachans have some of the best tank traits, with the part of their regimental trait, they get some of the best tanks with the roll 2d6, pick the highest for the number of shots. That's good. Or roll a dice and then re-roll if you don't like the result. That's what it is, yeah. So that's good, though. That's very good. Catachans get +1, and that's a good reason to use your infantry now, which is nice. So Catachans got buffed even better, relatively speaking. The last one, now again, let me double check this before I give out bad advice, though again, I'm pretty confident on this one, which is Regimental Doctrines, Valhallans, Grim Demeanour. Introduced with this doctrine, half the number of models that flee, rounding up if they fail a morale test. So that's really good. So whilst the Valhallan stratagem sending the next wave has effectively been taken around the back of the shed and put a bullet in the back of its head, the Valhallan Regimental Doctrine Grim Demeanour has suddenly got really, really important. and really, really useful. You just half the number of casualties. That makes a big difference. Big difference. Yeah, can't really tell you how much of a huge difference that makes, but it is. Valhallans have gone from being a bit meh to kind of on par with Mordians and Catachans, who I now feel are the two top, even with Cadians, because Cadians are going to really struggle at times to deal with battle shock now, especially Cadian conscripts. Because of they don't have any leadership buff to their trait. So there you go. I think a lot of the regimental doctrines that don't have leadership buffs are kind of going to struggle now. I feel Vostorians might be okay because they've got the extra range, so hopefully they'll be able to avoid long range firepower, and that'll help them mitigate battle shock. Could be tough though. Armageddon might be okay because they can stay inside the transport, so you're going to be mech'd up if you're playing Armageddon, aren't you? So there's that. Talons, tricky. I think Talons are going to suffer a lot from battle shock now. Potentially. Stormtroopers probably aren't because they're taking small squad sizes. Cadians, maybe. Yeah, maybe they do a lot of damage, so I guess their best battle shock defense is the fact there's no enemies around anymore. Maybe. But the ones that are really, really good at getting around battle shock are Valhallans, Catachans, and Mordians, which is good. I'd now put those as the top 3 traits. Crazy as it sounds. Crazy as it sounds. Even with all the rerolls that Cadians get. Because those 3 regiments have got easy ways of mitigating battle shock. So the next one, Lord Commissar, that's my next option. I mentioned it before. Basically, he's 55 points and he'll give you +2 leadership. The problem is if you go over that, you could, if you're at leadership 9 and you fail your battle shock test, he's going to start punching people left in the back of the head really hard and blow people's brains out. So he's not a great option. However, a Lord Commissar plus Draconian Discipline regimental trait is very good. What Draconian Discipline essentially does, as per the FAQ, is if you have a Commissar with Draconian Discipline Warlord trait and you fail a test, you blow a guy's brains out and then you kill D3 more. So you basically execute D3 plus 1, which is okay. Even if you only fail your test by 1, it's okay, especially on a blob of conscripts, to take that kind of casualties. Generally speaking, if you're down to 4 or 5 conscripts, it's only going to be a very occasional situation when that even matters. So yeah, so Lord Commissar plus Draconian Discipline, that is the first way that we've seen of not just adding leadership, but of just mitigating battle shock. So if you look at Lord Commissar with Draconian Discipline, that gives you access, in my opinion, to a full blob of conscripts, 30 conscripts, which is good. The ones that give you +1 leadership are generally for your infantry squads and veteran squads. The ones that just ignore battle shock are back for your conscripts. Okay? So we've got access to blob number 1, Lord Commissar plus Draconian Discipline. Switching back for a second, but on the topic of Commissars, the stratagem, the Ordo Prefectus tank, that gives you leadership 9 on everyone around the tank, but it costs you 2 command points, is good. I can see myself using that a lot. Because that stacks, you get leadership 9 from using the tank, and then +1 for the regimental standard, and then +1 for being Mordians, will give you leadership 11, which is really powerful. Really, really powerful. And there's actually a way to get leadership 12 as well, which we'll come to later. So the Commissar tank, there is no disadvantage to it. It costs 2 command points. It doesn't force you down a particular path. It's fluffy. It's great. No complaints there. So that's how you get leadership 11, which is nice. Leadership 11 will save a lot of your infantry squads from running away. A lot. And it'll save you a lot of Commissars going trigger happy on you. So the next way of just completely mitigating battle shock is using a relic, using Petrov's Mark 45, which is the Valhallan relic, which is simply a relic which gives you the old Commissar rule. You can never lose more than one person to battle shock. This is absolutely amazing, absolutely essential. Should be an auto include for most lists. Disadvantage is you must take Valhallan conscripts. You must take a Valhallan relic. You might not want to take a Valhallan relic, but if you do, you can just ignore battle shock, which gives you access to blob number 2 of conscripts. So you can have one blob with a Lord Commissar with Draconian Discipline behind them, and that gives you one old style blob. And then if you take either another Commissar or a company commander, probably a company commander, and put Petros Mark 45 on him, and then you put him behind another blob, that gives you access to 2 full blobs. So we're almost back to the standard, which was 3 blobs of conscripts. We're almost back to it. So there we go. Next one, another way of just completely ignoring battle shock is Insane Bravery, which is just 2 command points and you just ignore battle shock on a unit. That's good, but obviously 2 command points is quite steep, and it will, if you're having to do that every other turn, it's going to burn through a lot of your command points. It's not necessarily viable in a small points game. Also, if you lose 15 conscripts, do you really want to spend 2 command points keeping the other 15 around? I don't know, maybe. This is the problem with the fact that we can't take 50-man blobs anymore, but anyway. So, Insane Bravery. Another way of just ignoring battle shock is Mental Fortitude, which is the psychic power. Only costs, it's only 4 power level. It's the cheapest psychic power that I know of, so you're almost guaranteed to get it off every turn. And Mental Fortitude just means you ignore battle shock on a unit, so that gives you access to another blob if you want to. However, I would not rely on Mental Fortitude for 2 reasons. 1, you could fail the roll. It's only a 4+ on 2 dice, but you could fail the roll. 2, it can be denied. Someone can just deny your psychic power, so it can be countered. So Mental Fortitude is nice, and for 15 points and sticking it on a astropath, you can't really say no, but I'd use it as a backup, not necessarily something to rely upon. Fight to the death. Another stratagem that guard get. You take a morale test on a D3. Might be useful. It's only 1 command point, but if you're a unit of conscripts that's taken 15 casualties, taking it on a D3 or taking it on a D6, you're already buggered, aren't you? So it's not great, but it's okay, and it is a way of getting around battle shock a little bit. We've already talked about Draconian Discipline plus Lord Commissar. Okay, last one in this book, in the Action Town book, I should say, is Kell, Colour Sergeant Kell. He just gives you a flat reroll if you're within 6 inches of him, which might be useful if you need to get, like, if you're going to lose by 1 guy. If you're going to lose 1 guy, if you've got like a 5 or 6, it's all right to have a reroll and maybe you'll get under. So I would say if you think of Kell as a Commissar that gives you an optional reroll that you don't have to execute a guy, when you think of him like that, and the fact he comes with Power Fist, Power Sword and Carapace armor, he's okay, and he can give additional orders to people. He's okay. Kell is definitely a solid buy now for Cadians, and should really be in a lot of Cadian lists now to help get round these battle shock problems. Now, the next 2, the last 2 that I want to talk about, are not Imperial Guard specific, but they are very helpful. Number 1 is Inquisitors. So, in Index Imperium 2, you have access to the Inquisitor. You can use any Inquisitor. You can use Greyfax, Kazmarov, Cotiers, whichever one you want. I'm personally just a fan of a good old-fashioned basic Inquisitor, because they're pretty tasty. Taking a look at them, they've got a weapon skill 3+, blitz skill 3+, strength 3, toughness 3, wounds 5. Nice. Attacks 4, leadership 9, and a 4+ save. You can kit them out, blah, 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 but the main reason you're interested in them is unquestionable wisdom. All friendly Imperium units within 600 model can use its leadership characteristic instead of their own. And so that's leadership 9. And so if you would just allow me 1 second to find the points value of the Inquisition, I can tell you that an Inquisitor is 55 points, which is the same as a Lord Commissar. But he doesn't blow your brains out. He comes with a bolt, pistol, chainsaw, dragonist, and crackonist, so you don't need to buy him any other equipment. You pay 55 points, and that's absolutely fantastic. Also, he can be a psyker if you want to. All I'm saying is, I don't see any reason really to run Lord Commissars now. When if you're going to take a Lord Commissar for leadership 9, take an Inquisitor. He'll do the same job, but might not go trigger happy on you. Inquisitors are going to be very good. I'm probably going to be picking a couple up. And the last chap I want to talk about is Uriah Jacobus, which is the crazy priest of the Adeptus Ministorum. I'm just finding his page now. He has a special rule, Banner of Sanctity. All friendly Adeptus Ministorum and Ashmotab units within 6 inches of Uriah Jacobus add 1 to their leadership characteristic. See how that's his leadership characteristic? But the Regimental Standard just said leadership. Important difference, isn't it? Very important difference. Which means he can't give you leadership 12 as I thought he could do. My mistake, guys. It just means if you have him plus Mordians plus Regimental Standard, you'll be leadership 10. Yeah, you can't use... Yeah, so that's how he gives you leadership 10, which is nice if you've got a few of the buffs stacked on. I thought it was just plus 1 leadership, guys, so sorry. No, it's the highest leadership we can buff up to is 11. No, if you actually, that's not true. The way to get leadership 12 is if you take Inquisitor Cotiers, for example. If you take one of the named Inquisitors, which has leadership 10, you use their leadership, then you add plus 1 for Regimental Standard, plus 1 for being Mordians, and that's how you get leadership 12. Just looking if Celestine boosts your leadership at all. No, she doesn't. But she does give you a 6 of invalid save if you're nearby. But there you go. Anyway, that's it, guys. That is all the ways that I have found of mitigating battle shock. So you've got, just to go through it, Regimental Standard, Mordians, Mordian Warlord trait, Catachan trait, Valhallan trait, Lord Commissar, Commissar tank, Petros Mark Morty 5, Insane Bravery, Mental Fortitude, Fight to the Death, Draconian Discipline, Lord Commissar, Inquisitors, Uriah Jacobus, and Colour Sergeant Kell. They're all the ones I could come up with. If there's any I've missed, please put them in a comment down below. And I will see you guys next time.